Welcome to Burnin Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Brought to you by Stetson Ranches out of Fromberg, Montana. Well, howdy there, Daylight Burners. Happy Monday. Hope the weekend treated you well. Got all rested up or partied out or whatever it is you needed to get done. I hope you got it done. And we're back at it. Got a cool episode for you today. We got a fella named Jese Christiansen, who's a brother-in-law to Mr. Scott Hall, a friend of mine, and spent a lot of time packing for the U.S. Forest Service, and done a lot of other stuff. But grew up in eastern Utah, and we just kind of talked about that part of the world, and talked about packing, and a bunch of different other stuff. So anyway, it was a good one. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get back into the show.
Burnin daylight, burnin daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Burnin daylight. Well, life is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right.
There we go. Anyway, welcome back to the show, folks. We got a pretty cool one. Now, Scott Hall is your brother-in-law, correct?
He is. He's my brother-in-law.
All right. So we got Jese Christiansen, who's his sister Melanie, and Scott just got married, about a year ago?
About a year, but just after Thanksgiving last year.
All right. So coming up on a year, but so as Scott was saying last time he was on, I needed to talk to you, and we've emailed several times back and forth, and and he was telling me that you've been all over packing and stuff, and so he said it'd be a good one to visit with. So it sounds like you've done some cool stuff. I mean, you grew up in eastern Utah, you were saying, and so that's some pretty tough country out there. That's sure enough high desert, and
it is.
It's beautiful country, but it's pretty tough living.
It is hard living. You know, we go from on the south end, kind of where Scott and Melanie are right now. You know, that's high sagebrush desert, and then you got a band in between that's just dry, no grass, no water, hills, and then you can get clear up to the Alpine. We're on the south slope of the Uinta Mountains here. The highest slope in Utah is Kings Peak. It's just north of where I grew up there. And it's almost 14,000 feet. So you go from big high desert to above timberline, and I punch cattle and rode pack horses through a lot of that country for years. So now, you got to be a little diverse in your how and where.
Yeah. So that's being on the east side of the Rockies there. Would that be classified as in the Salt Lake Basin or in the Great Basin?
It's not in the Great Basin. It's in the Uinta Basin, so it's a basin all by itself. Okay. So you got the Wasatch Range runs down the east side of the Salt Lake Basin, and then you got some country in between, and then you come into this the Uinta Basin.
Okay, so you're not you're in Mormon. You're in Mormon country, but you're not like in the heart of Mormon country.
Right. We're still in the rural Mormon country. A lot of that country was homesteaded. It was part of the Ute tribe reservation. And then when I believe it was the Volstead Act, when they opened that up to homestead, and a lot of it was homesteaded. A lot of people down from Santique County came up in homestead. That's where my great grandfather Christiansen came up from around Manti and homesteaded up there. Back in
were they Mormon?
Would have been 1917. They ish.
Okay. Jack Mormon.
Jack Mormon would be the proper term there. Yes.
Yeah. So you're like, it'd be like the cultural Jew, where they're, because the Mormons are almost like their own ethnicity at this point.
They especially the Utah ones.
Yeah. Because it's like like I said, it's more or less like cultural Judaism. Like you're Mormon family, but non-practicing, or like moderately practicing. I guess that'd be kind of what they call the Jack Mormon.
Anymore. Yep, that'd be what they call a Jack Mormon. And I plumb quit it years ago. I kind of had some bad experiences, and nothing against, the religion or anything, but I'm more of a spiritual man, not really a religious man, I guess you could say. I like to spend my Sundays either out in cow camp or on the lake or out hunting, and you sure get looked down on when you're dragging an elk out of the hills on Sunday. So I kind of said to hell with it. And I like Copenhagen. I like Bud Light too much to want to be in church all the time. So
is that the official beer of the Jack Mormons is Bud Light?
It well depends on who you ask. It's either Bud Light or Busch Light. Okay.
They're not about the Coors.
Well, no, that's for them Gifty color.
Okay. Huh. I would have. I guess I never crossed my mind as to what the Jack Mormons drank. I know Utah's got some really fucking weird liquor laws. Like they can't serve a double. Is that right?
Yep. Can't serve a double. Can't sell beer before 10 in the morning in certain counties. There's some counties you can't sell beer on Sunday. I believe that's still a law on the books. Makes me want to stay out of those counties.
Yeah. I know. So like the county I was in Kansas, was like that. You couldn't sell beer on Sundays for a long time. And then, it was like, it was like a semi-dry county. Like the only bar in town was like a private club. So it wasn't technically a bar. And so like so there's a bunch of different counties in Kansas used to be like that. They're kind of slowly coming around to changing them, but like you would, they would charge you a $50 membership or something like that, but then like give you a gift card for $50 for the next time you come in. But that was just so like they could have you on their rolls as a member, because that was how they were able to have a bar in that county. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, I know. I grew up in Duchesne County, and I believe it was like that there for a long time before I come a proper age to go to a bar. And then Duchesne County, it's mostly oil field driven, so there's not really a good bar. So I'd rather stay out of them places, because you'd always find some loudmouth, driller or pumper or somebody that thought he was tough and wanted to fight. it was just easier to just stay out of there.
Yeah, like that. It's weird that part of Colorado. It's like you just uprooted Odessa, Texas, and put it on on the western slope of Colorado and eastern Utah.
That's exact.
Just nothing but like trailer park towns, and it's like, but it's not like the shitty skeevy like meth trailer parks you typically see in a small town. These are like high dollar camping rigs that are all parked on the outside of town.
Yep.
Like it's like it's kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies, except it's not in Beverly Hills, but it's like rednecks that got money.
That's exactly what it's like. You'll see a guy in a $8,000 diesel pickup pulling a $140,000 camp trailer.
Yeah, and he's a $10 dip in the oil market from going absolutely bankrupt.
Exactly.
But as long as that oil's still pumping, he is like he might as well be like a Saudi prince.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
just big timing.
Them guys always got some real nice fancy toys and real nice fans, and oil drops to a certain amount and you can pick them all up for a pretty good deal.
Oh yeah. I've always told people that, like, if you want to find a good deal on a pickup that you might have to like de-customize a little bit because they're all jacked up and big tires and tuned out the ass. But if you strip all the bullshit of it, you got a really nice pulling rig. But just wait for a dip in the oil market, and you'll be able to pick it up for about 10 to 15 grand under book.
Exactly. I know. Smile at you like you're doing them the biggest favor in the world when you do it too.
Oh, I know it. It's wild. It's wild how it's kind of like it's really kind of the last of the old West. Like even the mining, they're pretty well set as far as mining, but there's like a new oil boom every day. Like there's like, we got enough oil all over that like North Dakota's got to be like the old West, where it just, instead of just, like wall tent saloons, now they're like putting up actual bars and shit, and or just like somebody who can set up like a campground will make money for the rest of their lives.
Oh yeah.
It's wild how that works.
It is crazy. I spent some time about 10 years ago up in the Williston Basin. I was a biological surveyor for an oil and gas company for a while. Oh man, yeah, it was kind of wild. That was right when that big boom was just kind of kicking off, and people were getting set up there. And I mean, I'd never seen a hooker until downtown Williston run into one. And I worked too damn hard for my money.
Well, there was I did that what's his name, Ed Cantrell, like that was kind of the same thing there in Rock Springs. It was just like it was an oil boom, and all of a sudden like the bars were booming, and there were just hookers everywhere, and just all of a sudden my dad doesn't typically get very crude with stuff, but I called him. I was on my way from Nevada to Colorado, and I was, I'm in Rock Springs. And he's like, oh, Rock Springs, Wyoming, the asshole of the world. Oh, hey, it's me again. Sorry, I got to interrupt you, but I got some sponsors I got to tell you about because they help me keep this thing going. So first and foremost, we got Stetson Ranches out of Fromberg, Montana. You heard them at the top of the show, and you know them because they've been a longtime sponsor. They're a great outfit, multi-generational ranch family, focusing on the things that matter most in any ranch. That's beef and horses. They got a really cool direct to consumer beef program that's ranch raised, pasture to plate. All there at Stetson Ranches, USDA prime beef delivered to your doorstep. They got, you can get a full beef from them if you'd like. They also got packages down to like 1/8 and 1/4, or their monthly subscription box, which is 8 to 11 pounds of beef. That's hamburger, roast, stew meat, and various cuts of steak, just depending on the month. All delivered to you, frozen on in dry ice, for $125 a month. Use my promo code MOVEYOURASS, MOVEYERASS, and you'll get 20% off your first order. Tina also has some of the best quarter horses on earth. She's got a really good string of brood mares that she's curated over the years from 4/6s from King Ranch, and then she's also got a really killer line of stud horses. They've got a stud from the King Ranch with the foal crop. Be dropping this spring, and they also got a brand new stud. He's a grandson of Peppy Sandbadger and Docalina on the bottom side. He's just a really just an outstanding sire, and just some of the best quarter horses, some of the best beef, and some of the best people that you ever meet. Got any questions about this? Go to StetsonRanches.com for any horse information. StetsonBeef.com to order any meat, and make sure you tell them you heard about it on Burnin Daylight. Next up, we got pardon me, Tracie Morrison out of Chelsea, Oklahoma. Tracie Morrison Custom Silversmithing, building just really cool cowboy shit. We got a pair of spurs that we are raffling off with part of the proceeds going to the Farmer Veteran Coalition. Really nice, just a classic Texas style spur. Really good silver work engraved under a microscope. Got even engraved on the rowels to boot. I mean, these things are awesome. Anyway, $50 get you a spot in that. Just shoot me a message and we'll get you set up. We got 50 spots total, and they're going fast. So if you'd like to enter up, just shoot me a message, and be somewhere around the first. We'll draw for them. Quicker they get sold, the quicker we'll draw. But anyhow, go check Tracie out on Facebook and Instagram. Tracie Morrison Custom Silversmithing. It's TRACIE Morrison. Just give him a search, you'll find him. And he's building buckles, bits, spurs, cinches, or not cinch buckles. Just cool cowboy shit. Price for the working cowboy. So give him a follow. And then finally, last but not least, we got Cardomax.com. It's all the best supplements you might need. My favorite is the immunity booster. Basically, it's a liquid pouch about the size of a ketchup packet. You dump it in a bottle of water. It's got all natural ingredients, all the good shit. That no chemicals, no artificial sweeteners. It's all natural stuff, and helps you boost your immunity. They've got an energy booster. They've got a recovery deal. They all taste great. Good stuff. Owned and operated by former Navy SEAL Sean Matson, and just really good stuff. I use it every day. I highly recommend it. So you can go to Cardomax.com. Use my promo code MOVEYOURASS for 10% off. That's CARDOMAX.com. Promo code MOVEYOURASS, MOVEYERASS. And if you don't like hearing these ads, you can head over to patreon.com/BurninDaylight. Subscribe there at any level. You'll get ad-free content. Well, also, you get some bonus content. You'll get stuff released a little bit early, and we get to do some question and answer stuff, and you also get entered into a giveaway that I do every month, and it's a good deal. Helps me keep this thing growing, and you get some cool stuff possibly. So anyway, patreon.com/BurninDaylight. Now let's get back into the show. And that's pretty unlike him to say. he's usually a little more eloquent than that. But he used to drive truck for my grandpa on my mom's side, and he was big in the oil business. So they were, so he made a lot of trips from Texas to Wyoming, and most of those trips went, they ended right there in Rock Springs. That was kind of the oil capital of Wyoming.
Yep. Well, I've seen some sites in Rock Springs. I worked with a guy, and his girlfriend was the manager of the world famous Astro Club. It's a nudie bar there in Rock Springs. And so we could go in and get free chuck. And, when we was in town, so we was in there one night getting filled up on free grub. One of these welders, oil field welders, was in there with his girlfriend, and his wife came by and seen his truck parked there at the bar. So she grabbed the extra key and drove it through the front door.
Oh, shit.
And that was about the time we decided we just felt part of valor. So we got out of there for the cops showed up. I mean, I'll tell you what, that brand new 1-ton 2000 Dodge with a welding bed on the back of it. And it just come right through them front doors.
Oh, fuck.
I looked up my buddy, and he says, I think it's time to go. And I was like, yeah, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, that used to be it's still a rough town, but it used to be legit, organized crime rough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. From what I've heard, the mob had ties in there, and it was kind of a scary place. Yeah. So,
yeah. And Wyoming's always, even in the nice parts of Wyoming's kind of got a little rugged edge to them. But places like Rock Springs, that's just, it's not really, I guess they run, a lot of cattle in that area, but it's not considered the good cow country of Wyoming. It's kind of high desert stuff.
No, it's kind of high desert, a lot of sagebrush. I heard a guy say there's a good looking woman behind every tree in Rock Springs. And then you look out at Rock Springs and shit, there ain't a tree for 50 miles. So
right. It's a lot like where I grew up. It just high desert, we don't have any mountains anywhere to be found, but it's still at it's pushing 4,000 foot elevation, and it's pretty barren. Yep. There ain't much moisture there. It's pretty barren.
Yep.
So you said your family's been there since early 1900s.
Early 1900s. I'm sure I'll get corrected by family if I'm wrong, but I believe my great grandpa Christiansen homesteaded that in about 1917.
Okay. And how big was it 640? Was the homestead in that part of the world?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So full, and then. How you were able to acquire so many sections after you're established, right?
Yes. And then my granddad, he bought out 2 other old homesteads, and that made the basis for the ranch that I grew up on. So at one time we was running about 350, 400 pair. So nothing big, but kind of big for that part of the world.
Big enough where, that's enough to keep you busy all year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, and it was a good outfit. We had some, had the home ranch and had the hay ground. And of course, we had to be grass farmers as well as cowboys. You couldn't just cowboy.
Yeah.
We had some Forest Service grazing allotments that we'd kick the cattle up in the summer and then put up hay and go mess around up on the mountain. And that's kind of where I learned how to ride. And learned how to love being a cowboy, and then come home and cut hay. And I hated that damn tractor with a dirty passion.
Yeah.
So, when I turned 16, I got a chance to go to work for the Forest Service packing horses. And off I went. That first summer, I didn't know what I was doing, but nobody else knew that I was doing it wrong. So we kind of faked our way through that. And the next year, I get hooked up with an old boy named Bob Mergel. He came out of the Bob Marshall Wilderness up in Montana, and he was a packer, and he taught me how to lash a saddle and how to pull your hitches and how to pigtail the string together and do all that. And I was just like a sponge, man. I soaked up every bit of information I could from him because I wanted to be good at it. And I did all right, I guess. I did pretty all right. And boy, I sure had a lot of fun. Seen a lot of pretty country, traveled a lot of miles of horseback. So our with the Forest Service, our budget with the trail crew, by the crew for the summer, and that second year I worked there, I quadrupled our budget.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I covered a lot of miles.
Yeah,
and it was a good time. Had some, the government horses are. You could do a whole episode on government horses. I had some just plain plugs in my string, and I had a couple of outlaws, and I had some in between, and every day was interesting because you didn't know just exactly what or who or where the blow up was going to happen, but you knew it was going to happen somewhere.
Where did they get their horses from? Did they use Mustangs or how did they go about that?
They got their horses from the absolute cheapest auctions they could find.
Oh, okay.
So being the government, they don't want to spend a nickel more than they have to. We had 2 mules that came out of around Casper, Wyoming, I believe. They paid $100 for the pair, so $50 a mule. They were barreled back, no withered goddamn things. And we tried packing them. Of course, we weren't really set up. That was just when we, started getting going. Me and old Bob. So we was packed in sawbucks. We didn't really have Decker saddles. We didn't really have anything set up for a mule. But the big boss that was kind of over the whole wilderness program, he wanted us to try these mules out, see how they did. And of course, they got an old antenna that said, you don't ride a horse. Or you don't ride a mule if you got a horse, and you don't pack a horse if you got a mule. So I was kind of interested to see how this would go. Well, it's kind of like saddling a 55-gallon drum. And they just step hard and goddamn packle roll. So we fought that for a while. And the one you just could not, it didn't matter what you did. You'd have your packs and your top loads right to the ounce, just perfect of each other, and throw them on there and tie everything down good and hard. And she'd hunt a tree and just brush those packs and roll everything off. We decided, well, we couldn't pack her. She was supposed to be broke to ride. So we caught her in the trail one day and went to throw a saddle on her. Well, she blowed up and threw the saddle off. So Bob 4-footed her, and we laid her down, blinded her, and I got my rig on her. And he let her up and handed her down. I got in the middle, and he said, "You ready for this?" And I said, "Well, I anything that would buck like that." That dirty bugger. First jump, she came up, kicked up high up over her head, rocked me up onto the swells, came down, brought her head back around to the left side, and just as hard as she could, bit down on the toe of my left boot and wouldn't let go. And then she's jumping and going around through the trail there, and she got a hold of my boot. And every time I reach up to try to spur her, she'll reach up and cow kick me in the back of the right calf. And of course, I can't do nothing with my left because it's stuck in her mouth. And about 4 or 5 jumps in, I was off, but I can't get off because the damn mule's got my foot in her mouth. I don't know exactly how. I finally got her shut down. Somehow I finally got her head picked up. And I think it was after we ping-ponged off a tree or two, and she might have knocked herself a little dizzy. And finally got her head picked up, got her shut down, and I stepped off, and Bob goes, "What?" But yeah, let's not ride her neither.
Yeah, because it's
so that was fun.
Go ahead.
The guy that took over that, he's still working there. He just retired her last year, and I had a big write up in the local paper and a big ad on the radio about how she was nice and gentle and had done her job diligently through all these years and this, that, and the other. And this would have been, we got her and probably would have been 01 or 02. So, she wasn't exactly young. She's probably 5 or 6 when we got her. So she'd been there quite a few years. Yeah. I had a little age on her. And I just kept, are you sure we're talking about the same mule? Because she would hit me or at me every chance she got. She and I had a little hate relationship going on. Yeah.
That's funny.
I think it all stemmed back from, so we'd go out on an 8-day hitch and we'd come back, and we had a big horse pasture there up at a guard station. We'd kick all the horses loose out on for the 6 days off. And we came back on our days off and wrangled the horses together and looked at everything and started getting packs ready to go for the next day. We get up the next day and go to jingle the horses in, and mule ain't there. So we kind of go out to find her, and it's probably a 35, 40 acre pasture that these horses are in. There's a big stand of aspens kind of on the southwest corner of that place. Mm-hmm. One of those aspens, and this was running an aspen stalk up in her belly and opened herself up. And she probably pulled a 15, 20 foot intestine out. And she's laying there kind of up in them. And so I'm like, all right, well, dang, better take care of you. So I headed back to try to shoot her. Well, the big bosses, to get a gun to go shoot her, and the big boss is there. And he, no, God, no, we got to try to save her. We got to try to save her. Like, well, God, she's gutted herself, and it's a miracle she ain't dead yet. She'll probably never survive the 45-mile trip down to town. If we ain't got no phone service here, we can't get a bed up here. We're going to have to haul her in. No, we got to save her. We got to save her. So we work and get a truck and trailer Jimmy back in there and get her drug up into the trailer and haul her, bounce her down to the vet. The vet looks at her and he goes, well, you want me to euthanize her? No, God, no, we gotta try to save her. We gotta try to save her. He looks at us. All right. He gets a pail of lukewarm soapy water and just runs all the gut she's got strung out of her through this, kind of washes it off, jams it back in, sews her up, shoots her full of antibiotics. All right, if she lives, she lives. If she dies, she dies. And we took her back out and kicked her back out on pasture. Didn't really see her again the rest of the summer. I figured she died. Next spring, I come to get the horses in and start working with them, kind of get the rough off of them, because he kind of had to top off the string every year. And I'll be damned if that bitch ain't standing gate just waiting for me. And it's like she knew I was ready to shoot her, because that was when she started. I'd walk past, man, she'd just peel an ear back and give me a kick. And I knew just how I could get. But she kicked at me, but she couldn't quite hit me. We went rounds and rounds and rounds. She won a few and I won a few, and I'd say we'd have to call it a draw by the time I quit.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, those mules they're something else, man. They've got about 1,000 times the personality of like the most hard-headed alpha mare there is. They've got just they got so much personality to them. It's insane.
And this thing was the hard-headed critter I've ever met, and she's smart too. God, she figured out how to outrun me on foot in a set of 3-way hobbles. So both front, one back foot, and she figured that out in a day or two. That she did it right. She could outrun me on foot. And there were a lot of times I'd keep the pace, and I'd end up having to catch a saddle horse and go rope her to bring her in and get her packed.
Shit. That's wild. It's so like the way they bought horses for you is pretty much the same way they bought it back in back when they were moving across the West, they'd go to a town and be like, who's got the cheapest horses? All right, I'll take all of them.
Yep. That was exactly. And we ended up with some characters. We had one old big sorrel gelding, and we called him Sue because they put the U.S. freeze brand on him. Well, whoever was running the iron must have been drinking a little bit that day, because instead of U.S., U. So
that's awesome.
Tribute to Johnny Cash, we had a boy named Sue.
That's funny.
On the crew with us.
That's awesome.
He was one of those that, he'd make a good dude horse. And he's a big stout bastard. He could pack a hell of a load.
Yeah.
But if he didn't have an ass right in front of him, you couldn't get him to move. I tried to use him for that horse a time or two. Just, God, you couldn't spur him hard enough to get him to pick a foot up. Put another horse in front of him and try to go all day.
Yeah. They're just it's a curious creature, the mule. Like they can see basically 180 or 360. And then they pick their feet up independent of each other, where they still travel in a lead, but they, like, when they're on rocks and stuff, all four of their feet move independent of each other, so like they're incredibly sure-footed.
Oh yeah. And they can pack a good load. They can pack probably about 30% more than the horse will or so.
Mm-hmm.
So they was handy, but it sure would have been nice to have some good ones. I can't say that I was around a whole lot of good ones for most of the time. I did work with some guys that was packing out of Wyoming and Montana and central Idaho, but they had good stock in their strings. Of course, they had better bosses had too.
So what all were you packing? Was it just like touristy type stuff?
It was. So I had camps and tools and equipment for trail crews and Student Conservation Association crews and guys from the Safari Club and the U.S. Geological Survey and bigwigs from the Forest Service and anybody that was involved with government and wilderness, senators and congressmen, and I packed stuff for them. They didn't like me to be around the uppity highbrow people because I was a little rough back then. So then put them right in later. Then I'd go back and pick up. I'll tell you what, there is not a group of people, I'm convinced, that can outdrink anybody that has authority in the United States Forest Service.
Yeah.
Because I had mules, I'd have 2 or 3 mules in a string for a 2-day trip that were loaded with booze and nothing else. I'm just like, God almighty.
That's awesome. Tax dollars hard at work, folks.
That right there is, yes, Mr. NSA agent, this is a comedy show.
Hey, if on that end, I would far rather be packing booze into the wilderness, because then there's an off chance that one of them might get too drunk and trip and fall off a cliff, and then we're down one politician, and that's tax money well spent. So I'm all in favor of money being sent to the U.S. Forest Service PAC teams. Just on the off chance that if we get one of them, that'll be worth like 10 years worth of PAC budget. So
yes, sir. I never thought of it that way. I like the way you think.
Yeah, just so if you got to make a 50 mule PAC train just to ship in that amount of booze to off a couple of them, so be it. So be it.
Yeah,
money well spent.
That's Money and time well spent right there. Yes, sir.
Yes, and Mr. NSA FBI agent, this is a comedy show. This is all for the lulz.
Yes.
So were you the one that had the 50 mule string?
It was mixed string mules and horses. And there was 52 of them.
Holy shit!
Yes, that was me. Yep,
52.
I started that morning. We started setting pack that morning. Yeah. We started setting packs that morning about 3:30 a.m. and I hit the saddle at about 8. And I climbed out of the saddle about 8 that night. And I hadn't seen the back of that string since where we left. We left come out of the parking lot of the trailhead and started straight up the hill. And when I hit the top of that hill, my back 2 mules were just uncoiling and starting up the trail. And I was puckered the whole time. So I thought, if something happens, I can't see the back end of this son of a bitch. And there ain't nowhere big enough that I can get them circling and get it stopped. So I was tense. I went through quite a bit of Copenhagen and smoked quite a few tops that day.
I would imagine so. That would have been, boy, if we would have known about Adderall back in the day, that would have been when you'd wanted some.
Oh, that would have helped.
I can't imagine.
It was a lot of fun, and I had help. There was 4 other guys that were there with me, but they just kind of tied everything to me, and then they did. 2 of them rode point because I had never been there. This was up in Wyoming, up in the Shoshone National Forest. We'd done a trade for them. A couple of them came down and helped us with some stuff, and then I went up and helped them with this big project. They were building some bridges, so we had tools and equipment for the bridges, and then we had all the decking material and all the lumber for the bridges. And wanted to do it in a couple of trips, but we had kind of a narrow window of time to get all the material in there before the tourist season kind of wrapped up and the trails got busy, and we knew we were going to be having big strings. And the last thing you want with a big string is to run into some goddamn backpacker who wants to come up and pet the horse and blows everything up. So we had a window, and we just thought, well, let's get it all done at once. So away we went.
And then no wrecks at all.
No wrecks at all. I mean, the typical pack string, everybody's got to fight out the pecking order in the first 1.5 miles, 2 miles, but everything went pretty good. And of course, we begged, borrowed, and stole horses and mules from anywhere we could get them.
Yeah.
To get any. So, and then I had a big bay horse. If Marty Robbins had wrote the Strawberry Roan about a bay, this would have been the bay. Big old, one of them fugly looking horses. I mean, he was so ugly, he was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I loved him, but God, he had a big neon sign that flashed bronc suspended between his ears. I mean, he could flat out quit you at any point in time. And it was mostly if you got that rope rolled up under his tail, look out.
Yeah.
Because he was going to pop. And he'd go until the rope came out. And then he had 2 or 3 more jumps left in him just to make sure he got his point across that he didn't like that.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, those mules, man, they're, well, are just horses in general, but like, yeah, when you got 52 of them all loaded down and going up a hill, I mean, that's insane. I don't know what's do you have any idea what the record is for like number of animals in a pack string?
I have no idea. I've read some things on like back in the in 1876 when they was The U.S. cavalry was fighting the Sioux up in Montana, and you had Crook and Custer and those guys up there. And Crook was a big fan of the mule strings. And I think he had, they'd have a couple hundred mules hauling supplies and ammunition.
That's
no string.
That's insane. Let me see if I look it up here real quick. Longest pack train.
And I didn't have big at the time. It was anywhere from 4 to 7 in a string buck. So, and that's that's pretty manageable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, like, unless you're moving like huge amounts of supplies, there's not much need for more than that. You wouldn't think.
No, not really. I bet them old traders and that on the Santa Fe Trail, I'm sure they had some pretty big strings back in the day before they had the big Conestoga wagons and things to haul stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure, but anytime, I mean, like, it's like every like imperial army throughout history, the farther they get away from home, the harder it is to maintain an army, because it's not just the army fighting and winning battles. It's all the food and supplies and everything that to keep that army going is the thing. So like that was one of the big reasons why like the U.S. never really invaded Utah. Like they kind of worked it out diplomatically, because the Mormons would just run off their entire supply train and in the middle of the night, and they'd be, and then the Mormon people would eat U.S. beef for the whole winter.
Old Porter Rockwell, he made sure that them early pioneers ate pretty good on Army beef.
He was I could say you could put him in like the early days of like the U.S. Special Forces, even though he was part of the, what would they call it, the Nauvoo Legion, isn't that what
Well, yeah, and they don't really talk about it much in the history of the Mormon Church. The Danite Society and Brigham Young's Avenging. You hear a little bit about it here and there, and I've never really cared to dig much into it, but you hear about it a little bit. And of course, Porter Rockwell, he's kind of legendary for any kid growing up in rural parts of the country, because he was a gunfighter and he rode good flashy horses and run off Army beef and did all this, that, and the other, and was kind of an insurgent, I guess you might say.
And he, and I believe this is from Brigham Young's writings himself, but he also partied naked I don't know if it was in the temple, but it was in one of the high up muckety muck Mormon buildings in Salt Lake. I got drunk and partied naked during some dance or something there in Salt Lake.
Yeah. He and I would have got along all right. Yes, sir.
He might have been like a closet Jack Mormon, because I read his biography, and I've read a lot of different stuff about him. And he was very much a big part of the early Mormon church, but like most of those early like apostles or whatever, once they hit a certain level, like they were like very highfalutin, like gave a lot of sermons and whatnot, but not Rockwell Porter. No, he raided, started a ranch started a tavern. Like he had one of the first bars in the state of Utah.
Oh yeah. He wasn't ranked. He did a lot for him, but he wasn't kind of ranked up there to where the history books would remember his name. At least in the go to church every Sunday morning's eyes. Yeah,
he was not really known as like so much a spiritual leader. He was just he was the sledgehammer of the church, basically. Just whatever Brigham needed done that he couldn't get his hands dirty. It was like, there was like him and John D. Lee and I forget what the other guy, another one of Brigham's Avenging Angels, but there was like three of them. Like if he didn't want his hands on it, he sent it to those three.
Yep.
It's that shit's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll one of these days I'll get around to recording my Mormon history series, but there's a lot there, a lot more than I realized when I started.
Oh yeah. They were actually a big part of the settling of the West. You kind of don't hear about it. They really were.
Well, they had,
and I'll give it to them,
Yeah. Well, they went from
old Bert.
Yeah. They went from Salt Lake City being nothing there, but some passing bands of Indians to 20,000 strong in like 5 years or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And it was, they really moved a lot of Mormons out to Utah. Like they're from all over the place too. Like a lot of, a lot from like the UK. That's where Brigham Young really got his kind of start was as a missionary. And so like he took a mission over to Great Britain, but like, I don't know. It had to have been just like that time period. Like it seemed like every church was having some sort of revival or something. And the Mormons, like for whatever reason, they just cleaned up over in like the UK. They just like, like tens of thousands moved from overseas and they just landed there in New York or Boston or wherever. Got on a train as far as they could go. And then some of them, were part of pack train but a lot of them just carried their own shit on a hand cart across the plains. It was insane.
Oh yeah.
Had to been some good preaching. Had to been some really good preaching.
You have got to be dedicated, And this was nobody could check their Facebook back then either. So
no, you couldn't.
Hard on them.
you couldn't really Google whether or not the whole gold tablet thing was true or not. You couldn't. Wasn't much Googling back in the day. But like I said, it had to have been some really good preaching because they got a whole bunch of them to come on over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, especially when they finally got moved over to Utah, and then they officially recognized polygamy as part of their religion. I'm sure they had a ton of dudes be like, I can get behind that.
Well, I've got one ex-wife and one wife right now, and having had both of those, I'd say one too many some days. I don't know. Boys did it, and they had to be sober through it too. So
right,
hats off to them.
Well, when did the sober part come in? Because I know in the early, I think it might have been when they moved out to Utah. I think that's kind of when the sobriety was supposedly. But there was always those few that were grandfathered in. Like any big bureaucracy or some sort of hierarchy like that. The people at the top, they either get grandfathered in or there's loopholes because Brigham Young sure liked his wine. And there was plenty of that shit going on. But
And well, there's stories that I heard when I was a youngster and would go to church from time to time. I remember hearing a story once about how, they came up with the word of wisdom. You couldn't smoke and you couldn't chew tobacco and you couldn't drink. And it was because of Emma Smith, Joseph Smith's wife, was tired of picking up all the cigarette butts and the cigar butts and cleaning the floors from everybody spitting plug tobacco on the floor. And somebody'd always get drunk and throw up. And she was tired of that. So that's about the time that old Joseph Smith come up with the, maybe we should not do this.
It was probably because,
behind every.
Yeah. It was probably because Porter Rockwell got all drunk and was dancing naked on her table or something.
Probably, that'd be a sight. No, Porter up there in his boots and his spurs, and then the smile.
One of the apostles shit in the corner, and she's like, "That's it. No more booze."
That whiskey is bad.
Like he probably had to clean up his own shit or be excommunicated.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. But yeah, it was funny.
This ain't a frat party. Come on.
It was funny. I was reading. I read it in a couple different books, but there was. It was like during, I think it was like right before the Mormon Reformation. And it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years after they had like officially recognized polygamy. Like he gave this big sermon about how the women just need to stop bitching. And if they can't, if they can continue to bitch, they can feel free to leave paradise. And so there was like a 2-month period where there was just a flood of women out of Utah. But like, if they left, they're like, nope, fuck you. Everything you own belongs to the church. So you leave. So they basically left in their underwear, but there was still just a flood of them headed up to Laramie because they're like, fuck this. We had enough.
Yeah.
But apparently there was still a bunch of them that stuck around. So I don't know. Like,
oh yeah,
there were some of those old gals that they were either true believers or like, hey, this ain't too bad. I'm not dying of scurvy. So
yeah. I got a roof and a full belly, and you know what? I guess I'll deal with it. There's worse things in the world.
This old fuck only comes to visit me once a week, so I can grin and bear it. And then
yeah. It's amazing how I got a headache every Thursday night.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how like just the old men of the church like were continually the ones that got the younger girls. Like the young men were kind of screwed if one of the church elders took a liking to their high school sweetheart. They're just like, well, sorry, Jethro. That's wild. That's wild. So what else? Who was the most interesting person you met when you were packing for the government?
That would have been old Bob Mergle, the guy that taught me how to pack. You know, he was an interesting feller. He'd done about 15 years up there in the Bob Marshall Wilderness as a packer with the Forest Service and guides and outfitters. Before that, he retired from Las Vegas PD SWAT. And then before that, he started his law enforcement career in Coconino County, Arizona. So he'd seen a few things, you know, and this would have been back in the early 70s when he started all this. So there was some interesting things that happened.
I can imagine. He used
to tell is when he was So one story he used to tell when they just got hired on with Coconino County. There was the sheriff and him. He was a patrolman, and that was it. That was the county police force. And had a little 2-door hatchback. I think it was like a Rabbit or something. That was his patrol car. And of course, they didn't have a dispatcher, so you hung around the phone and somebody called, and then you took the dispatch and you wrote a note and said where you were going and went and dealt with it. Well, he gets this phone call one day, and it's this old lady lives about 35, 40 miles out of town, and she's got a marijuana tree, she thinks, growing in her flower. So he's, well, all right, I'll come see about it. So he loads up in the car and drives out there, and he's like, sure as shit, there's a 6-foot pot plant in her garden. She don't know how it got there. She's got a son that he's kind of a little bit of a free spirit at that point in time, and she thinks he might have planted it or something. And so he thinks it's pretty cool. So he gets out an axe and chops this thing down and jams it in his car. Well, it's too damn big to get the hatchback down. And he thinks, he's going to throw it off and take it around the schools and whatnot, show the kids. And so he's driving down the highway, and he's got this marijuana tree poking out of the back of this patrol car. And it's got the bubble lights on top and everything. And he said it's just a big, flat, straight road where he's going. So he, at the time, he smoked roll your own cigarettes. And so he gets a knee up under the steering wheel, and he's going down the road. He pulls out his sack and starts rolling him a smoke. And he says, about this time, he never looked in the rear view because there was never any traffic. He says, about this time, a tie-dyed VW bus passes him. And he says, I can still hear them hippies today. Like, yeah, man, I swear to God, this cop had the biggest plant you ever seen, man. And he's rolling a fucking...
Oh, that's funny. That's good. They, I've never really been around those plants when they're full grown, but I guess they get big.
Apparently so. I've never had anything to do with them really either, but yeah, apparently that one was, Miracle Grow, I guess. Miracle Grow, and they had some good water, and I guess they'll get pretty good sized.
Yeah, Jese Stetson of Stetson Ranches, he was sending some pictures last year for their hemp harvest, and that shit was like 10 foot tall, and they had a whole circle of it. Like, yeah, I mean it's big tall stuff. He was saying they were, the first year they had it, they had a bunch of migrant labor come in for hemp harvest, and of course, most of them were Mexican or Honduran or something, didn't speak any English. And I guess it was pretty early on in the harvest. Jesse had them all gather up, and he told like the main translator, he's like, hey, let them know that you cannot smoke that stuff. I mean, you can smoke that all you want and you will never get high. So if you're keeping the buds, you're wasting your time. It's no good. And so there was like 30 of them that came out, just emptied their pockets. And he's like, I wasn't even mad. I wasn't even mad about it.
They probably thought, oh man, this right here is the golden goose. Look at this.
I know it, because they had those type of operations in California too, out in the public lands, but they were ran by the cartel. So you kept a bud and put it in your pocket. They just shoot your ass and bury you out in the desert somewhere.
Yeah.
But working for a legit operation, I'm sure. Like, yeah, I can take a couple ounces of this home and sell it. And, you could, but you're not going to get anything for it unless you're a good salesman, and then you'll only make that sale once, though.
Yeah.
You'll sell the real. Yeah. You might sell the hell out of it the first time, but not so much again.
Yeah.
Well, how about on like the people that you helped pack in? Who was the most interesting that came in? Like, I guess tourist or guest or public official.
I as far as public official I never got to meet any of them. So I'd just get told, here's all this gear and you have to haul it into here. And I'd say, okay, who's it for? And well, you don't need to worry about it. So, yeah, that was about what I got told. I heard, Orrin, I heard Orrin Hatch was up there a few times. He's a Utah guy, and some other big, I just heard whispers and rumors that there were people, but I like they say, they didn't like me hanging around with the muckety mucks. So, I haul their gear in, drop it off, and circle back a few days later and pick it back up.
All right. So you didn't really deal with people too much then?
No. In fact, I once went 3.5 months without having a conversation with another human being.
Oh, no shit.
That was a glorious time.
I can imagine.
Although by that time, I had got in some arguments with that bay horse that I was riding, and that son of a bitch could outsmart me every time. So, when was this? That would have been summer of '99.
All right, so that at summer of '99, you would have at your most technologically advanced, you would have had a Discman. That's about. Yep. I guess you could have had cassette, like a Walkman, but I don't think well, they're if they made an MP3 player at that time, there's no way you would have had access to. I mean, like you would have been able to just have that MP3 player and that's it, because you're not going to have a computer to where you can continually upload shit. I mean, like 99, we still had, we had just got internet. And that was dial-up, rural dial-up. Yeah. So we didn't have internet then, and things like that were. I think I had a Walkman, cassette player, but I damn sure wasn't going to take it on a mountain with me because it'd get broken and ruined. So it was just me. So I got to appreciate the sound of my own voice quite a bit. And I remember at the end of that, I came back into the office there in Duchesne, to the Forest Service office. That would have been about this time of year, 1st of September. And, everybody, oh yeah, good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while, this, that, and the other. And I had to stop. So it was like, oh, they're talking to me. Oh, that's, yeah. And at that point in time, I'd probably been a couple of weeks where I hadn't actually said anything out loud. I just thoughts running through my mind, but I hadn't actually opened my mouth to speak. So it was kind of weird to hear my own voice come out then too. Oh, I bet. That's, there's been times where I've spent like a week or better just with nobody but myself. But even in like a, I spend most of the day by myself, especially on Friday, Saturday, but I still come in contact with people on a daily basis. And so like, it's hard not to speak to another person, unless you're just way out on a mountain or out on the desert or something. Yeah. And I was way out there. I actually, I used to avoid Boy Scout troops like the plague because, being the big mountain range that it is and having the highest peak in Utah, you'd always get these Boy Scout groups from the Wasatch Front that want to, do a 50-mile hike and climb to the top of Kings Peak and this, that, and the other. And I would avoid them at all costs. And toward the end of that, I was hunting for them because I just wanted somebody to talk to. And you could always tell if there was a Boy Scout group in front of you, because there was a solid trail of mini Snickers and Jolly Rancher wrappers, and you could backtrack right into camp. I always knew, there's a sour apple Jolly Rancher. There's Boy Scouts in front of me. Yeah, that's funny. Why those two in particular, you think? I don't know. That's just what they seem to like. So Snickers and Jolly Ranchers, huh? Snickers, Jolly Ranchers, and then they're backpacking. And a lot of them are coming out of the Wasatch Front, which is, a city area. So they don't really know what
to do. So they would come and hunt my camp up for a while, after 2 or 3 days in, and drop off all the canned food they had because they decided it was them cans was heavy. So
yeah, I imagine
at the time, the Forest Service had established camps. So it was just an A-frame cabin type deal that you'd drag a wall tin over, and it had a stove and, some kerosene and a lantern and some things. And they were a good deal to have because people get in that backcountry and, shit happens. It does. And you needed a place to get out of the weather, to get some help. There was always a fully stocked first aid kit there. They could get in, get some medical attention, get dry, get warm. And I just put all them cans in that, in the cache there at the camp just to, in case anybody ever needed it.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty handy. But they had you had a regular supply of canned goods just from them Boy Scout troops, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had a lot of Nally chili and a lot of tuna fish.
Tomato
soup. Had a lot.
I have never understood why anybody likes tomato soup, but I guess somebody does.
Yeah, I took a kid with me once, kind of teaching back, and he said he'd bring his own food, and that's what he lived off of for breakfast or for lunch and dinner every day was just a cold can of tomato soup and a sleeve of Ritz crackers.
Yeah. That's awful.
Yeah, that's what I like. Hell, we've got horses, we can pack good food, but no, that was can of tomato soup and sleeve of crackers. Okay. Glad you're eating it.
Yeah, so that just makes my stomach turn thinking about it. I'm not a big, I just don't like tomato soup in general, but cold tomato soup, you might as well just be like squeezing a jug of ketchup in your mouth.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
No.
Yeah. So, when did you were you able to start like packing in, or like when did people want to start being back in there?
We'd usually follow the snow line, so we'd start getting horses in shape around the first part of May, and usually by the 1st of June you could get into some of the mid-country basins, and then by around the 4th of July everything was open up that you could get into the way back country, and then I'd start rolling trail crews. About the end of May I'd start rolling trail crews on the short ones, and then packing gear for everybody else. And then when I wasn't packing gear for people, I was also covering miles riding reconnaissance. So I'd take the trail crew up one drainage and drop them in their camp off, and they'd, work this section of trail, and then I'd go out and ride alone for 2 or 3 days in a direction. Usually I'd cross a pass or two, drop into a couple more drainages, couple more basins, check out the trail, see, what they were going to need to. There's a big blow down here, big rock slide here, this bridge washed out when the high water came, things like that. And then go pick up the trail crew, come back out sometimes, or sometimes the trail crew, they would hike themselves out. I'd go pick up the camp, roll it around to another area and meet them back in there. And that's kind of how we rolled all summer long.
Just logistics.
I'd unload the horses at one trailhead, tell somebody, all right, I'm going to come out at this trailhead. And 8 days later, I'd ride out. And most of the time, there'd be a truck and trailer there waiting for me. There were a few times that I had to ride clear back to town or to the closest houses. And then usually it involved an ankle. Yeah. It usually involved an angry phone call to somebody going, where the hell is my ride? And thing never worked. And I also packed a radio for a while, but that never worked. You get 2 or 3, lost Boy Scouts a year that you'd have to get lost and use the radio. You had a few, I had a few lifelike cases, somebody, call the office, roll the helicopter in, get on the radio, get with the helicopter pilot. And being in a wilderness area and being at high elevation, they could never land because the air's not dense enough for them to lift back off if the chopper actually touches down. So they'd get down and hover and drop the medics out, whatever. And then they'd load them, load the patient up, whatever, and take off. But they couldn't actually touch the ground because there wasn't enough lift. Once they got down, they couldn't get back up. So it get kind of interesting times.
Oh, I bet so. Did they like have a winch to pull the people up once they got them loaded?
They did. If they had to use it, they would use it. A lot of times they get down and they can hover 2 or 3 feet over the ground. And so the pilot would come in and drop the medics off, and then he'd pick back up and make the circle while the medics are doing their thing. And then once they help them, load them up on the ship, and then they'd pick up and go again.
I see. So they could get real close to the ground like that, and then load it. That makes sense.
They could get real close to the ground. They couldn't actually get down and let the bird rest, or they wouldn't get it back up again.
That's wild. You got to be a pretty good pilot to make that all happen.
Yeah, and those high elevation basins and that, you've always got crosswinds and wind swirls and things, and the conditions I'm sure was never right. I don't know anything about being a pilot, but I'm sure it was tricky for them.
Oh yeah, I'd imagine so. Well, shit, we've done an hour and 15,
and then yeah, I have to. Oh shit.
Yeah, your audio is kind of cutting out there, but yeah, I was just saying we've done like an hour and 15. I've enjoyed the hell out of it. But let's get you back on another time, and we'll continue it.
Sounds good to me. I've enjoyed it. Oh, can you hear me?
I got you now. Yeah, you were on a lag there, but we got you now.
Okay. Me and technology.
It's how it goes. I come to expect it. Talking to cowhands, the service is never all that good. So it's just how it goes. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and let's set up another time, and we'll do Packing Stories Part 2.
Sounds good to me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, anytime you're one, I'm able. So
awesome. Well, if you don't mind, sign us off.
Oh, you bet. Everybody out there, move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Boom. Appreciate it.
Well, Dan was a packer. He was a good man with a mule. He was 9 years old when he led his first string. At packing loads, reading sign, Dan, he was no fool. He coiled more ropes than most men ever seen. And riding through those mountains was his dream. Up there where the sky, it seems, goes on on forever. And he knew all the trails that wind through the timber. He knew early morning coffee over wood smoke, and days beyond number in those high granite passes where you could hear the words that God spoke. And his life was a steady course of mule and man and horse together. Here's to those who ride the mountains, where the mule song makes a sweet refrain. Dan was born to ride the mountains, and a man like Dan, you know he'll never change, for his heart's as big as the whole Sierra Range. Yeah, Dan was a packer. He rode for 60 years and always new country to discover. He rode the high Sierra, and her winds against his face were soft as the touch of a lover in a world of sky and stone. Sometimes he was up there all alone, but he was lonely never. But Dan lives in town now, he don't go up there anymore, but he can see him out the window and dream there. For land shapes its people, but the people give it flavor. So a little bit of Dan will always be there. For riding in those mountains was his dream, up there where the sky, it seems, goes on forever. So here's to those who ride the mountains, where the mule song makes a sweet refrain. Dan was born to ride the mountains, and a man like Dan, you know he'll never change, for his heart's as big as the whole Sierra Range. Yeah, Dan was a packer. He rode for 60 years. He coiled more ropes than most men